So do you have any funny stories for us that happened during this road that you were kind of going on to get to your degree in 2008?
I have so many funny stories.
Clean.
Yeah. I'll give you a few in ministry. So when I was the director at Reformers Unanimous, one of the sad parts is people overdosed and died.
Right.
And I did a lot of funerals.
Yeah.
And I was kind of thrust into that role. I've done way more funerals than weddings, even though I pastored for 9 years.
Yeah.
And so at one of these funerals, it was in Flint, and it was a lady, and we had shut the doors, and we began the funeral. And in this particular funeral home, I was up like 6-7 feet, like above the casket. The platform was high. And I read the scriptures, and we opened in prayer, and all of a sudden, the double doors flew open like bang. And this couple starts walking down the aisle, and they're having a conversation. I mean, right in the middle
of the service.
Right in the middle of the funeral service. And they walk right to the casket. So they're probably 4 feet from me, but I'm above them because I'm on that platform. And they start talking about the deceased. I'm out loud. Everybody can hear this. It's not a huge room. There's probably 40 people in there.
Yeah.
And
you're like, what are you doing?
And it was like they were oblivious. Like it was still, visitation. And finally I looked at them, and I had no malice. And I said, hey, you know what? When you guys are done, I'll kick back up, but I'm going to go sit down. So I went and sat down, and they probably stayed at the casket. It felt like 15 minutes, but it was probably 3 or 4.
Shut
And then they sat down. And I kind of looked at them, and then we went back with the funeral.
Listen, is it all right if I finish up here?
Yeah, so that was that. If you got time, I'll give you one more quick one.
Yeah, what do you got?
So over the course of time, the Lord just worked in my heart about being a pastor. Like I was the director, and I was an associate pastor, but of being a lead pastor. And so I talked to my pastor about it and took counsel, and the Lord answered that call and put my family over at Hadley Community Church, which is Southern Lapeer.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing you didn't do as an assistant very much is like the Lord's Supper, communion.
Yeah.
I've been through it thousands of times because I grew up in the church, but I had never kind of let it.
Yeah.
And either the first or second time I did it. Now, there's an order in the Word of God, 1 Corinthians 11.
Yeah.
It's bread first, and then...
You actually read it, and then you just do
the
it.
Juice. I handed out the juice first. And, it's a small thing, and it was an innocent mistake, but boy, did that create a buzzstorm. We talked about that for years.
Here's the thing. The fact that creates a buzzstorm is the stupid part about that.
I agree with you. But
I cannot believe that you would put the juice in front of the bread.
So for whatever reason, though, I didn't read the passage before. I was going to read the passage while and during. And so I had the deacon stand up, and we did the juice first. And then I opened my Bible to 1 Corinthians 11, and clearly his body, the bread, is first. And I'm like, what have I done? And I'm having this internal dialogue standing in front of people.
Dude, that is why I love those moments where you're like, well, we're going to move on here. And I appreciate that Southern accent just comes out like, I have dropped the horse. Like
Dude.
So you were talking about funeral things, and I have a buddy of mine that transports bodies.
Oh, yeah.
Back and forth. And I was like, dude, you got any funny stories? He's like, matter of fact. He's like, I had to travel down. They called me at like 11 o'clock at night. And he said, I had to travel down in the middle of Nowheresville and pick up this body and come back with the body. And he said, it's rainy and it's thundering and it's storming. He's like, go in. He's like, I get out and I'm banging on the door. No one's there. Had to call, had to wait. Finally gets the body. And he says, I don't know if you know this or not. He said, but dead bodies become gassy. And I was like, okay. And I'm thinking, punchline here, right?
Yeah.
So my mind is going in one direction, right? And I'm thinking the smell, right? That's where my mind's going. The smell of that gassy, the dead body, it's got to stink, right? No. So he's apparently when they put the casket or whatever they hold the body in, they have these straps.
Yeah.
And if you hit the brakes real hard, it moves, right? Mm-hmm. Well, he was coming back, and he had this person cut him off, and it was thunder and stormy, and he hit, and when he hit, the casket bumps the back of the seat, and he's like, oh. And he's like, oh, okay, it's just a casket. And then 2 seconds later, he feels this thing like massaging his shoulder. He's like, I was doing 60 miles an hour. He's like, I hammered the brakes, pulled over to the side of the road, jump out of the car, looking all around. He's like, there's nothing. There is nothing. He was like, but the gas had put weight on the thing and moved it forward, and it was released. And while he had been waiting to get the body, a black cat had jumped into the vehicle and had walked across his shoulders, and he thought the dead guy was massaging him. I was like, listen, it wasn't brown, it wasn't gray, it was black.
Did he quit his job or did he stay?
It was a couple months, man. Wow. He was like, all right, that's enough. Roll him back up. We're good.
That's good.
Oh, man. I was just told him, I said, listen, I couldn't do that job. Like, God bless those people that do that job. But like
mortuary science. I have a good friend who does it.
Right. Yep. And please use the word science because it's weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you hear the stories about them sitting up and all that crazy stuff they're talking about,
yep.
you know, and I just, so